Anyway, please get my business plan back. If you reach around my back now, I'll reach around yours later. That's a Wikibeania promise.
Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and this is Far Cry New Dawn. The latest Far Cry game from Ubisoft promises to take you back to Hope County, the setting from Far Cry 5, only this time it's 17 years after the nuclear apocalypse, which is cheerful. I spent a few hours playing a preview build last week and was really pleasantly surprised. Don't tell my colleague Ian about this, but I've been feeling a bit of Far Cry fatigue of late. While they're tremendous sandboxes to cause a bit of havoc in, they all started to feel a bit samey. And while New Dawn certainly isn't breaking the mould in terms of the Far Cry formula, not to mention taking place on a map we've seen before, it still had enough quirks and innovations to reignite my interest. So without any further ado, here are 7 cool new things in Far Cry New Dawn. First up, a post-apocalypse that isn't drab. As I'm sure you've seen for yourself, video games set after the apocalypse tend to be a bit beige and miserable. West Virginia! Even Rage 2, with all its neon marketing and party-hard soundtrack, is a game experienced through sepia tones and dusty landscapes. Far Cry New Dawn, on the other hand, is a post-apocalypse bursting with colour, from the garish weapons and daubs of graffiti that litter the land, to the lush vegetation and colourful flowers in bloom across the map. And, lest we forget, blood! Loads and loads and loads of bright red blood.
What the hell?
I'm being glib, of course, but it is refreshing to see a post-apocalypse that's lush and verdant, with nature reclaiming things rather than being scrubbed right back to nothing. I'm not entirely sure how it works, given it was definitely nuclear weaponry that caused this particular apocalypse, but that certainly didn't stop me enjoying myself as I explored the lands of Far Cry New Dawn. Talking of nature being a bit different, actually, the next thing I really liked in Far Cry New Dawn is the different take on its fauna. Because the animals of New Dawn are every bit as nasty as they were before, only in some new and exciting ways. For one thing, many of the creatures that litter Hope County have mutated to become bioluminescent. Come across a moose and you'll see that its horns are now a luminous neon orange. Get too close and you'll see it's not afraid to use them. If you wander into the path of some deer at night, meanwhile, you'll see they now glow a charming shade of blue. And then there are the predators, whose eyes now glow menacingly, whether there's a light shining in them or not, which is perfectly horrible. Thank you very much for asking. I'll admit, it is a little disappointing that these changes are all cosmetic and don't change the way the animals behave, at least as far as I saw. Having a deer's head split open to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth a la Stranger Things or John Carpenter's The Thing would be brilliant. But even without radical mutations such as these, the wildlife is still different enough to be worth admiring. And in true Far Cry fashion, some of the animals are still utter bastards. At one point I foolishly took on a wolverine, only to realise it was safer to charge into an enemy outpost and try and lose it there than it was to stay and continue the fight alone. One way in which the predators of New Dawn have changed, though, is that they now go food shopping. On killing some prey, the native animals of Hope County will now drag it back to their den, giving you an opportunity to go loot it later. Now, this is something Ian talked about in a previous video, but it didn't really hit home for me until this moment, when I came across a bad guy and his faithful dog next to a motorbike. I killed them both, with all apologies to the dog, but before I could fix the bike and ride away, a bear showed up. I kept my distance, only to see said bear pick up the dead man in his jaws and lumber away as if it were picking up the morning newspaper. Best of all, once I'd repaired the motorbike, I set off for my destination, only to overtake the bear, who was still casually wandering towards its den with a corpse hanging limply from its mouth. Just delightful. Anyway, not every cool new thing I saw during my hands-on time had to do with the animals. Indeed, New Dawn is taking the iconic Far Cry Outpost and giving it a damn good shake-up. See, in the post-apocalypse, ethanol has become an all-important resource, being used as fuel for vehicles, and for some of the more daring citizens of Hope County, as booze.
Joey, I should have warned you. Yeah, the party liquor's just ethanol for car engines.
More on that particular character later. Anyway, upgrading Providence, your base of operations in New Dawn, requires a steady supply of ethanol, giving you access to better weapons, explosives, and even expeditions to other parts of the country. One way to get ethanol fast is to take over the game's numerous outposts, or, more accurately, to take them over and then abandon them again. Outposts in New Dawn now operate on 3 tiers. You can take an outpost for yourself and then hold on to it forever, if you really like, or you can effectively abandon it to the enemy. At this point, you get a pretty big ethanol payout, your foes regain control of the outpost, and it advances a level, meaning it's better defended and also staffed by tougher enemies. Take it again and you can abandon it for a second time, pushing the outpost to maximum strength and presenting you with an even tougher challenge, and, of course, giving you more of that sweet, sweet ethanol. It's a neat mechanic, not just for those who are keen on upgrading things as swiftly as possible, but also those who like a challenge. As good a staple of the series as they are, the outposts of Far Cry mostly become inert once they've been taken. The more you interact with them, the less dangerous and the more drab they become. Outpost escalation, on the other hand, effectively means there are 3 times the number of outposts for you to take, offering a decent challenge and lucrative rewards along the way. It also works pretty well with the tiered system of enemies introduced for New Dawn, giving you an idea at a glance of how tough the encounter is likely to be. Tough enemies or no, though, the next new thing I really liked in Far Cry New Dawn makes any fight significantly easier, because it's the saw blade launcher.
Guarding shit's important.
We've seen this before in New Dawn footage, of course, but in terms of Far Cry games, this baby is brand new. It's also loads of fun to use. Firing out saw blades at a rate of knots, it's perfect for dealing huge amounts of damage to enemies, no matter where you hit them. The saw blades themselves also ricochet about the place, so even if you don't get a direct hit, you've got a good chance of dealing at least some damage, or, if you're lucky, hitting an explosive barrel and blowing everybody sky high. And to top it all off, the saw blades have little smiley faces on them. Just adorable. The saw blade launcher packs some serious punch, although in order to compensate, you can't carry very much ammo for it. That's at the beginning of the game, at least. The demo build I played kicked off at the very start of New Dawn, but assumedly ammo capacity upgrades are available at some point. While the ammo count is pretty meagre, mind you, you are at least able to recover the saw blades once they've been fired, so if you're diligent enough, you should always have at least one more salvo in you. Most importantly though, the saw blade is loads of fun to use and really effective, so it's well worth making a part of your arsenal. The next item on our list of cool new things in Far Cry New Dawn comes in the form of treasure hunts. Side quests that net you bit of gear like lighters, comics or other collectibles aren't exactly anything new to the franchise, but New Dawn's treasure hunts are much more in-depth affairs, and if the one I took on is anything to go by, they've got a pretty wry sense of humour. The treasure hunt I completed was called For Whom the Bear Tolls and involved an abandoned church with a locked door. By reading scraps of paper strewn about the place, I learned the key to the locked door was, rather fittingly, hanging around the neck of a bear. The bear, usefully enough, had been trained to respond to the ringing of the church bell, so it was just a matter of giving the bell a punch or two, and then running like hell while whittling the grizzly's health down to nothing. Retrieving the key from the corpse, of course, led to a locked room, which was absolutely stuffed with loot, including some really valuable stuff locked away in a safe. It was a brief diversion from New Dawn's standard action, but it was a good giggle nonetheless. Hopefully the other treasure hunts strewn about the place are of a similar quality. Now, do be warned, the next 2 points on our list of cool new things in Far Cry New Dawn contain story spoilers. While they aren't massive, if you want to start the next Far Cry completely cold, you'd best tune out now. Still with us? Right. You know how Herc always finds a way of showing up in Far Cry, whether he's blasting stuff from an aerolite or grunting prehistorically? Well, New Dawn is no exception. While I didn't get to see the big man for himself, I did at least manage to meet his cousin, and get this! Herc's got a baby!
Welcome to Chateau Beauchamp, the loudest, smelliest place in all of Hope County. And the only spot where my little shit kicker likes to sleep when he's cranky. He's up there in the bro's nest now. We call him Blade. Yeah, he's my cousin Herc's baby, but we're raising him together. I tell you what, though, he's a real chip off the old block, loves farts and the sound of gunfire. It's like swaddling to him.
One of the missions you can undertake in New Dawn sees you help out Sharky Beauchamp, Herc's cousin. The poor man is rushed off his feet, what with defending his little stronghold against nightly attacks from the Highwaymen, New Dawn's antagonists, as well as looking after Herc's bouncing baby boy. After helping him arm some traps to prepare for that night's raid, Beauchamp invites you to have a little drink with him, forgetting to warn you that you're about to knock back some pure ethanol. Told you we'd come back to that. Anyway, when you regain consciousness, the Highwaymen are about to attack, and Sharky asks you to get involved and man the mounted guns. It's at this point you realise just how much Herc's son Blade takes after his old man because, goodness me, he's a murderous little tyke.
Hey, cutie, you want to help Mommy make the baddies go boom boom, Blade? Yeah? Okay, press the button. That's it, buddy. Ho, ho, ho! I'm so goddamn proud of you right now. I'm finna grind. Oh, shit.
Not sure it's healthy to be teaching a child how to kill other people quite so enthusiastically, but hey, I guess the rules of parenting have to change at least a bit for the post-apocalypse, and you have to admit, the kid's a good shot. And finally, from murderous babies to murderous father figures now, because you'd best believe that Joseph Seed makes an appearance in Far Cry New Dawn. With this game taking place on the same map as Far Cry 5, you can, of course, go visit the starting island where the previous game's action began and finished. New Eden is most definitely still inhabited in this new post-apocalyptic world, but I'll be honest, my first visit didn't exactly go as I'd planned. Happily, Joseph himself, or at least a pretty convincing hallucination of him, was on hand to help me, leading to a very trippy quest indeed. You can see it in greater detail for yourself in a separate video if you'd like to see what New Eden looks like now. It's live on the channel as we speak. And that about does it. 7 cool new things in Far Cry New Dawn. What did you think? Are you tempted to jump into the colourful new post-apocalypse, or is it just too similar to Far Cry 5 for you to be interested? Let us know in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are loads more for you to watch. Some of them should be on screen now. Do like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you don't miss anything else from Eurogamer, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.